Hi everyone, welcome back to USCIS Analysis. This is the update for November 5th, 2022 regarding the processing times for the I-129F petition for alien fiancé by USCIS. First, let me give my usual disclaimer. I am not affiliated with USCIS and I am not an immigration lawyer. I'm just a guy with some data mining skills trying to better understand how long I'm going to have to wait until my fiancé and I can move to the US to get married. My data mining takes a lot of effort, so I want to share it with as many people as possible. Next, let me mention that this analysis only looks at the applications being processed at the California Service Center. I've mined the statuses of all cases at all 5 service centers for the past 2 years, a total of more than 2 million case receipt numbers, and I found that for the I-129F, 93% of the applications are handled by the California Service Center. If you're one of the lucky 3% to have a case that was received by the Nebraska or Potomac service centers, then let me say congratulations and I'm jealous. Jumping right in, this chart shows the activity from the California Service Center last week. Basically, the California Service Center is currently processing cases that were received around the middle of August 2021. In other words, the California Service Center is processing cases that were received almost 15 months ago, which is in line with the processing time estimate on the USCIS website. You may have noticed that this estimate has been steadily increasing over the past few months. Unfortunately, as we'll see, USCIS is still processing fewer cases than it receives, so this number will continue to increase. This chart shows the statuses of almost all the I-129F cases handled by the California Service Center over the last year and a half or so. Every bar represents the number of cases that were received during 1 week. Cases that were recently received are on the right, and cases that were received a long time ago are on the left. Here, blue indicates the number of cases that are waiting for notification from USCIS, what some people call NOA2. Green indicates the number of cases already approved, and yellow indicates the number of cases for which USCIS has sent a request for additional information. In total, there are more than 53,500 cases still waiting for some notification from USCIS. Over the past 4 weeks, USCIS has been receiving around 836 new cases every week. This chart shows the number of cases that have been closed each week for the past year. The good news is that there's a clear increase in the number of cases that USCIS has been able to close over the past 4 weeks. The week of October 9th was a short week due to the Columbus holiday. Compensating for that, USCIS has been able to close around 570 cases per week. Again, the number of cases that were approved is shown in green, cases that were denied are shown in red, and cases withdrawn by the applicant are shown in brown. USCIS has been approving around 92% of I-129F cases recently. Unfortunately, closing 570 cases a week is not good enough to keep pace with the 836 cases a week that USCIS has been receiving. In other words, USCIS is receiving 47% more cases than they are closing, which means that the backlog of cases is growing and the wait time is increasing. This chart shows the activity of almost all I-129F cases at the California Service Center over the last 4 weeks. For those who are watching this video in the future, I'm specifically talking about the 4 weeks between October 9th and November 4th of 2022. As mentioned earlier, the California Service Center is currently processing cases that were received around the middle of August 2021. There's almost no activity on cases that were received after August 2021. If your case was received before September 2021, but you haven't heard anything from USCIS yet, here's some more detail for you. This chart shows the statuses of cases that were received before September 2021 by the date that they were received. Remember that blue shows the number of cases that are still waiting for some notification from USCIS. USCIS has started processing cases that were received as early as September 3rd, 2021, but many cases that were received before are still waiting to be processed. For example, from this chart we can see that almost a quarter of the cases that were received on July 26, 2021 are still waiting to be processed, even though some of the cases from September 3rd, 2021 have already been approved. Honestly, I don't know why there's a gap in processing some cases compared to others. This chart shows the statuses of even older cases. Here, the vast majority of cases have already begun to be processed, but there is some strange data. For some reason, around 20% of the cases that were received on June 6, 2021 are still waiting to be processed. In general, it takes around 13 weeks for USCIS to start processing 95% of the cases that were received on any given date. I don't know why, but some cases seem to be unlucky and don't get attention until much later than others. Anyways, the point is that if your case was received before September 2021, then congratulations, you've reached the front of the line. I can't say for sure when you'll hear something, but it could be any time. Here are some projections for the I-129F cases that were received after August 2021. This is assuming that USCIS continues to close cases at around 570 cases per week, which is the average rate over the past 4 weeks. As I just mentioned, USCIS doesn't process cases in strict order, but rather over a window of around 13 weeks. Because of this, I'm showing two projections, a 50% probability and a 95% probability. For example, for the cases that were received on September 27, 2021, based on the current pace that USCIS is processing cases, I expect that 50% of the cases will be processed by December 17, 2022, and 95% of the cases will be processed by February 25, 2023. This graph shows the cumulative probability distribution for the timing of notification, the so-called NOA2 from USCIS versus the projected notification date. This is for cases that were processed over the past 4 months or so. My apologies, but this chart might be difficult to understand unless you've studied statistics. However, here are the main points. Over the past 4 months, there's a clear trend that can be used to predict when cases that were received on a particular day will receive notification from USCIS. Applying this prediction retroactively, it's clear that USCIS generally processes 50% of the cases in the 2 to 3 weeks before the projected date. On the other hand, 45% of cases are processed in the 10 weeks following the projected date. The final 5% can take a very long time to be processed. Honestly, I wish I knew what kind of factors can cause notification to be delayed, but that's not clear to me. Anyways, here are some projections for the I-129F applications that were received in 2022. Please note that these projections assume that USCIS does not improve the pace of processing cases. However, these projections are so far away that I have to believe that USCIS will improve by then, so I expect that these projections will improve over time. In fact, my projection for cases that were received in September 2022 is already half a month shorter than it was in my previous video 4 weeks ago. Finally, you may be wondering why the numbers that I'm showing are different from the number for processing time that's currently shown on the USCIS website. Unfortunately, this number is super misleading. It means that USCIS has completed 80% of the cases that were received 15 months ago or longer. It does not mean that cases received now will be processed in 15 months. You're probably already aware that this processing time number has been steadily increasing over the past year, and it will continue to increase as long as the pace of closing cases is slower than the pace of incoming cases. So, here are the key takeaways from this data mining and analysis. First, USCIS is currently processing cases that were received around August 18, 2021. If your application was received after August 2021, then your wait is likely to be longer than the 15 months that's currently shown on the USCIS website. Second, the backlog of I-129F applications is currently around 53,500 cases. USCIS is currently receiving around 836 new cases per week, but is only closing around 570 cases per week. This means that unless USCIS improves, processing times are going to continue to increase. Earlier this year, USCIS announced the goal of reducing processing times to only 6 months by October of 2023. At the moment, they're still clearly heading in the wrong direction, so I'd like to ask you all for your help. Please take a moment to write to your or your sponsor's senator and congressman to help us put more pressure on USCIS to improve this worsening situation. Links to finding the contact information for your senator and congressman are in the description below. I really hope that you found this information helpful so that you can better plan your future with your soon-to-be spouse. If so, please help me spread this information to others by giving a like to this video. Also, thanks to everyone who leaves comments. It's been very motivating and helps me to improve these update videos. Finally, I'll definitely continue to track this situation, so please consider subscribing to keep up with the latest. Thanks!